The quiet hum of Europa Station's monitoring equipment filled the cramped control room. Tom Baker sat at his console, sipping his third cup of coffee, when the first signal appeared. At first, he thought it was just another piece of space debris, but the quantum readings were unlike anything he had seen before. "Control, this is Baker. You need to see this," he called out, his eyes fixed on the dancing patterns across his screen. The night shift supervisor, Rita White, walked over, her boots making soft thuds against the metal floor. "What have you got?" she asked, leaning over his shoulder. "Look at these patterns. They're not random. There's a clear sequence repeating every 12 seconds. Tom pointed to the peaks and valleys in the signal. "And it's coming from the Kuiper Belt." Rita's eyes widened. After 20 years of monitoring deep space, she knew this was different. Within an hour, the signal was confirmed by 3 other stations. Earth Defense Fleet Command was notified immediately. Captain Robert Wilson of the EDF Starship Hope received the alert while his ship patrolled near Pluto's orbit. "Plot a course to the signal source," he ordered his navigation officer. The Hope was the closest ship to the mysterious transmission, and as the fleet's newest vessel, it was best equipped to handle any surprises. As they approached the coordinates, the ship's sensors revealed something that made the entire bridge crew fall silent. Hidden among the icy bodies of the Kuiper Belt was a massive fleet of ships, at least 30 vessels, some larger than anything humans had ever built. "Status of the unknown ships?" Captain Wilson asked, keeping his voice steady despite his racing heart. "No power readings from their main drives, sir," reported Jack Green, the sensor officer. "They appear to be running on emergency systems only. Life signs detected, but they're unlike anything in our database." Wilson made his decision. "Send the first contact package on all frequencies. Let's hope they understand basic math and physics." The response came faster than anyone expected. A series of mathematical equations appeared on their main screen, followed by a simple message encoded in prime numbers. "Help. Stranded. Systems failed." The alien ships were beautiful in a strange way, with smooth curves that seemed to bend space around them. But their once bright hulls were now dark, save for scattered emergency lights that pulsed weakly in the vacuum of space. "Begin broadcast in simple mathematical terms," Wilson ordered. "Tell them we're here to help." The next few hours were tense as the two species established basic communication. The aliens called themselves the Starborn. At least that's how their name translated through the mathematical language they shared. They were refugees, fleeing from something they couldn't yet explain with their limited shared vocabulary. Their quantum drive systems, far more advanced than human technology, had failed during a crucial jump. Now they were stranded, their massive fleet running on backup power, too far from home to call for help. Wilson sent a message to Earth Defense Command. "First contact established. Refugee fleet. Request immediate technical and humanitarian assistance." The response from Earth was swift. Within 24 hours, 5 more human ships arrived, bringing engineers, scientists, and supplies. The Starborn watched with interest as the relatively small human vessels maneuvered with precision around their massive ships. "Look at their technology," one of the Hope's engineers said during the first inspection. "It's like comparing a quantum computer to an abacus. But right now, that abacus might be exactly what they need." As the first day of contact drew to a close, Captain Wilson stood at his viewport, watching teams of human engineers in spacesuits float between the ships. They looked tiny next to the enormous alien vessels, like worker ants next to fallen trees. Yet there was something powerful in that image. Humanity, taking its first steps into a larger universe, not through conquest or fear, but by offering help to those in need. The Starborn's initial messages carried a tone of polite doubt. How could these humans, with their primitive fusion drives and basic space technology, help a civilization capable of quantum space travel? But they had little choice but to accept the offered assistance. Little did they know, humanity's greatest strength wasn't in its technology, but in its ability to solve problems with whatever tools were at hand. The rescue mission was about to demonstrate why humans had survived and thrived against all odds on their hostile homeworld. The first chapter of an incredible cooperation was about to begin. The next morning, Earth's best engineering team arrived on the Hope. Leading them was Alex Miller, a man known for fixing the impossible. His gray hair and worn hands told stories of 30 years spent solving space engineering problems. With him was Kate West, young and brilliant, whose fresh ideas had revolutionized Earth's propulsion systems. "It's worse than we thought," Alex said, floating through the massive engine room of the main starboard vessel. The quantum drive core towered above them, its dark crystal structure stretching up into shadows. Usually, it would pulse with energy, but now it sat lifeless. The starborn engineer, whom they called Blue for the color of his skin, watched the humans with all four of his eyes. He transmitted technical data through their newly established computer link. The human engineers studied the complex diagrams appearing on their tablets. "Their technology is amazing," Kate whispered to Alex. "But look here. The quantum matrix is completely shattered. It's like trying to run a computer with a broken processor." Alex nodded, his flashlight beam playing across the alien machinery. "The question is, can we fix it with what we have?" The next 12 hours turned into a crash course in alien engineering. The Starborn's quantum drives used principles that seemed like magic to human science. They could bend space itself, creating shortcuts through the universe. But the system was so advanced that even the Starborn couldn't repair it without their specialized facilities. "Show me your backup systems," Alex requested through the translation computer. Blue led them to a lower level, where simpler emergency drives sat idle. Kate's eyes lit up. "Alex, look at this. They're backup drives. They work on similar principles to our fusion systems. Different technology, but the same basic physics." It was their first real breakthrough. While the humans couldn't understand the quantum drives fully, they did understand the emergency systems. They were like distant cousins to Earth's engines. The human engineers spread through the fleet, checking each ship. They found the same problem everywhere: dead quantum drives, but salvageable backup systems. Earth ships began delivering spare parts and fuel. "We can't fix their main drives," Alex reported to Captain Wilson in the Hope's conference room. "But we might be able to get them moving using a combination of their backup systems and our technology." The Starborn leaders received this news with visible confusion. Through their translators, they asked, "How can primitive fusion drive help quantum ships?" Kate stepped forward with a bold plan. "We can't match your speed," she explained, using diagrams on the main screen. "But we can make your backup drives work with our fuel. It's not elegant, but it will move your ships." The Starborn debated among themselves. Their musical language filled the room as they discussed the human suggestion. Finally, Blue turned to the human team. "Show us," he said through the translator. What followed was an amazing display of human ingenuity. Engineering teams worked in shifts, adapting Earth's fusion technology to power the alien backup drives. They used parts from both human and Starborn ships, creating hybrid systems that no one had ever imagined before. "It's not pretty," Alex said, looking at the first test setup. Human cooling pipes wrapped around alien power cores. Earth computers connected to Starborn control systems through specially built interfaces. But it should work. The test began on a small shuttle. Everyone watched from the Hope's observation deck as the hybrid drive sparked to life. Blue lights mixed with the orange glow of human fusion technology. The shuttle moved, slowly at first, then with growing confidence. "By the stars," Blue transmitted, his message carrying clear amazement even through the basic translator. "It actually works." Kate grinned at Alex. "Sometimes the simple solution is the best solution." The Starborn's attitude began to change. They watched with growing respect as human engineers worked tirelessly, solving problems with basic tools and creative thinking. What they lacked in advanced technology, they made up for with determination and practical solutions. By the end of the day, Plans were in place to modify the entire fleet. It wouldn't be fast or elegant, but it would work. The Starborn were learning an important lesson about humanity. Their strength wasn't in their technology, but in their ability to adapt and overcome. As Alex watched teams of humans and aliens working side by side, he smiled. "You know," he said to Kate, "sometimes being primitive isn't such a bad thing after all." The repair work continued into the third day. The massive hangar of the Starborn mothership buzzed with activity as humans in work suits moved between ships, carrying tools and equipment. The air was filled with the sound of welding and the hiss of pressure seals being tested. Mike, a veteran mechanic from Mars Colony, wiped sweat from his forehead as he finished connecting another set of power cables. Next to him, Blue watched with growing curiosity. The alien engineer had spent hours observing the humans' work, fascinated by their hands-on approach. "Your species is strange," Blue transmitted through his translator. "You touch everything. You use basic tools, yet you make things work." Mike laughed, tapping his wrench against the hull. "Sometimes you need to feel the machine to understand it," he explained. "All the fancy computers in the world can't replace good old-fashioned mechanical sense." Across the hangar, a problem arose. One of the hybrid power systems was overheating. The Starborn's advanced cooling systems weren't compatible with the human fusion drive. Their engineers suggested complex solutions involving quantum cooling, but they lacked the parts to make it work. Lisa, a young engineer from the Hope, had a simpler idea. "Water," she said, sketching on her tablet. "We use water cooling, just like in old Earth computers. Simple, reliable, and we have plenty of ice we can melt from the Kuiper Belt objects." The Starborn engineers were shocked. "Water as a coolant? That's primitive." "Primitive, but effective," Lisa replied with a smile. She demonstrated by setting up a basic water cooling system. The temperature readings immediately began to drop. The Starborn watched in silence as the simple solution solved their complex problem. More surprises came when the humans introduced their repair techniques. While the Starborn relied on automated systems and quantum-level repairs, humans got their hands dirty. They crawled through maintenance tubes, used manual tools, and sometimes just hit things until they worked. "This method is not in any manual," Blue observed as Mike used a rubber mallet to align a stubborn power coupling. "That's because some things you can't learn from manuals," Mike replied. "You learn them from experience, from making mistakes, from trying things out." The turning point came when one of the Starborn ships developed a critical power fluctuation. Their automated systems couldn't identify the problem. The ship's core temperature was rising dangerously. Captain Wilson called an emergency meeting. "We have 2 hours before that core goes critical," he announced. Ideas. The Starborn suggested evacuating the ship and letting it drift away. It was the safe, calculated response. But Lisa had another plan. "Let me go in," she said. "No computers, no fancy diagnostics. Just me, my tools, and my eyes." The Starborn protested. It was too dangerous, too uncertain, but Wilson gave his approval. Time was running out. Lisa entered the ship's core, protected only by her work suit. She moved slowly, touching panels, listening to the hum of power conduits, following her instincts. After 20 tense minutes, she found it. A tiny crack in a cooling pipe, barely visible to the naked eye, but causing a cascade of problems through the system. "Sometimes you need human eyes to see what computers miss," she transmitted back. The repair took only minutes with a simple patch kit. The Starborn were amazed. Their most advanced sensors had missed what a human found by looking and listening. It challenged everything they believed about technology and progress. As the days passed, more of the alien crew began to work alongside the humans. They learned to use simple tools, to trust their senses, to solve problems without relying solely on computers. The humans, in turn, learned from the Starborn's precise and methodical approach. "Perhaps," Blue said to Mike near the end of another long work shift, "there is wisdom in keeping things simple." Mike nodded, putting away his tools. Simple doesn't mean stupid. It means reliable, fixable, understandable. Sometimes the best technology is the technology you can fix with a wrench and some common sense. The repair work was proceeding faster now, as both species learned to combine their strengths. The humans' practical skills and the Starborn's advanced knowledge created solutions neither could have developed alone. In the observation deck of the Hope, Captain Wilson watched the teams working together, humans and aliens, advanced technology and simple tools, complex problems, and practical solutions. It was a beautiful sight. Two species learning that different doesn't mean better or worse. It just means different. No one saw the danger coming until Earth's early warning system sent out the alert. The sun was about to release one of the largest solar flares ever recorded. The massive burst of radiation and charged particles would reach them in less than 3 hours. All ships, this is Captain Wilson. The alert went out. Massive solar flare approaching. This is not a drill. Prepare for emergency protocols. The human ships immediately began their protective procedures. Their shields were designed to handle solar storms, but the Starborn fleet, running on backup power, had minimal protection. Their quantum shields were offline with their main systems. Our remaining shields will fail. Blue transmitted urgently. Our hulls cannot withstand this level of radiation. The fear in his message was clear even through the simple translator. In the Hope's command center, Wilson gathered his team. "We have 2 hours and 40 minutes, he said, looking at each face around the table. "Ideas?" Lisa stepped forward. "The Starborn ships have external plates that could reflect radiation, but they need power to work." "We don't have enough power," Blue responded, "even with the hybrid systems." That's when Dave, a quiet engineer from the mining colonies, spoke up. "What about the ice? The Kuiper Belt objects around us. They're not just water ice. They contain metals." "Go on," Wilson encouraged. "We could gather the metallic ice, melt it, and spray it onto the hulls of the Starborn ships," Dave explained. "When it refreezes, it'll create a reflective layer. Not as good as powered shields, but better than nothing." It was crazy. It was primitive. It was exactly the kind of solution humans were good at. "How do we gather enough ice in time?" someone asked. "The mining ships," Dave replied. "We have 3 of them helping with repairs. Their equipment is designed to collect and process space ice." Wilson made his decision. "Do it. Everyone who can help, suit up. We're going ice mining." The next 2 hours were intense. Mining ships broke up nearby ice objects, while crews in suits guided the pieces toward the Starborn fleet. They used the mining ships' processing equipment to spray the metallic slurry onto the alien hulls. Human ships positioned themselves to provide extra shield coverage where they could. The Starborn watched in amazement as their massive vessels were coated with a glittering layer of frozen metal particles. 1 hour to impact, came the warning. Inside the ships, humans and Starborn worked together to set up backup systems and emergency protocols. They moved sensitive equipment to shielded areas and prepared for the worst. 30 minutes to impact. The last crews returned from outside. The makeshift shield wasn't perfect. They could only cover the most critical areas of each ship, but it was better than nothing. 10 minutes to impact. "All hands, brace for radiation surge," Wilson ordered. "Protect yourselves and your equipment." The flare hit like a hammer from the gods. Radiation levels spiked. Communications crackled with static. Emergency lights flashed across both human and alien ships. But they had planned well. The human ship's shields held. The improvised ice armor on the Starborn ships reflected much of the radiation. Where it failed, the human ships adjusted their positions to provide coverage. For 20 minutes, they rode out the storm together. When it finally passed, everyone held their breath, waiting for the damage reports. "Human ships, all systems functional," came the first report. "Starborn fleet, we are alive." Blue transmitted. "Your ice armor worked. Primitive but effective." The relief in the command center was physical. People laughed, cried, and hugged each other. They had faced a crisis that could have destroyed the entire fleet, and they had survived. Later, during the damage assessment, Blue approached Wilson. "We were wrong about humans," he transmitted. "We thought your simple technology made you inferior, but today we learned that simple can be powerful." Wilson smiled. "Sometimes the best solutions aren't the most advanced ones. They're the ones that work." The crisis had done more than test their ingenuity. It had proven that humans and Starborn could work together, trust each other, and combine their strengths. The ice armor wasn't pretty or advanced, but it had saved lives. As crews began cleaning the frozen metal from the hulls, there was a new respect in how the Starborn watched the humans work. They had seen humanity at its best, resourceful, determined, and unwilling to give up even against overwhelming odds. The solar flare had been a challenge, but it had forged something stronger than any shield: trust between two very different species. Lisa sat in the Hope's engineering lab, staring at holographic displays of the Starborn's quantum drive. After the solar flare incident, she had spent countless hours studying the alien technology. Something about it kept nagging at her mind, a pattern she could almost see but couldn't quite grasp. Blue had been working with her, explaining quantum principles that seemed to defy human physics. They had developed their own way of communicating, mixing simple drawings with mathematical equations. "Look here," Lisa pointed to a section of the quantum matrix. "The energy flow pattern. It reminds me of water in a river." Blue's translator blinked as he processed her words. "Water," again with the simple comparisons. "No, really." Lisa grabbed a marker and drew on the clear board. "See how your quantum energy flows. It's like a river hitting rapids. When it gets disturbed, the whole system fails." She drew more lines, showing how the energy twisted and broke. "But what if we could calm the river? Create a smoother flow?" Blue's 4 eyes widened. "You want to stabilize quantum energy using fluid dynamics?" "Not exactly," Lisa smiled. "But the principle is similar. What if we used our fusion drives not just for power, but as a stabilizer?" The idea was crazy. Using primitive fusion technology to control advanced quantum systems was like using a paddle to guide a spaceship. But after the success with the ice armor, the Starborn were more willing to listen to unusual ideas. They spent the next 12 hours running simulations. The human engineers brought their knowledge of plasma control, something they had mastered with their fusion drives. The Starborn contributed their understanding of quantum mechanics. "There." Lisa pointed excitedly at the screen. "See how the fusion field contains and guides the quantum energy. It's like building banks for the river." The simulation showed success after success. The fusion field could act as a framework, holding the quantum energy stable even during space-time distortions. It wasn't as efficient as the original system, but it was far better than their current backup solutions. Captain Wilson called an emergency meeting when he heard about the breakthrough. The Hope's conference room was packed with both human and Starborn engineers. "Explain it to me in simple terms," Wilson requested. Lisa stood up. "We're going to build a hybrid drive. The Starborn's quantum technology provides the power, while our fusion technology keeps it stable. She thought for a moment, like putting a wild horse in a corral. The horse still does the running, but the corral keeps it going in the right direction." The Starborn engineers chittered among themselves, their musical language filling the room. Finally, their lead scientist spoke through the translator. "It is an inelegant solution," he said, "crude by our standards." There was a pause and then, "But we believe it will work." The next few days were a flurry of activity. The first test would be on a small Starborn shuttle. They'd rebuilt its quantum drive, adding human fusion technology in a complex dance of old and new, simple and advanced. Everyone gathered to watch the test. The shuttle's engines hummed to life, the deep throb of fusion drives mixing with the high-pitched whine of quantum energy. "Energy pattern stable," Blue reported, watching the readings. "Quantum field contained." It's working. The shuttle lifted off smoothly. Its quantum field, instead of shattering like before, held steady within the fusion framework. When they tested a small space-time jump, it worked perfectly. The cheer that went up came from both humans and Starborn. Lisa found herself being lifted onto shoulders, her simple idea having bridged the gap between two technologies, two species, two ways of thinking. Sometimes, Blue said to her later, the greatest wisdom is in seeing the value of simplicity. We had forgotten that in our rush to advance. The breakthrough meant more than just fixing the ships. It represented a true melding of human and starborn knowledge. The humans' practical understanding of basic forces had helped unlock a new way of using quantum technology. As teams began adapting the new hybrid drive for the larger ships, there was a sense that something important had changed. The starborn no longer saw humans as primitive beings to be tolerated. They saw them as partners, bringing their own unique wisdom to the universe. Lisa looked at her simple drawing of the river, still on the clear board. Sometimes the biggest breakthroughs came not from complex theories, but from seeing the simple patterns in complex things. As work continued on upgrading the fleet with hybrid drives, something unexpected began to happen. During the long hours of working together, humans and Starborn started sharing stories. It began in the Hope's mess hall, where crews from both species gathered during break times. Dave, the mining engineer who had suggested the ice armor, sat with a group of Starborn engineers. They were fascinated by his stories of growing up in the Mars colonies. "You live underground." Their translator conveyed their amazement. "In tunnels and caves." "Not just live," Dave explained, showing them pictures on his tablet. "We built entire cities down there. Farms, factories, schools. Everything protected from the radiation and dust storms above." The Starborn shared their own tales in return. Through a mixture of images, mathematics, and translated words, they told of their home system. 3 suns dancing around each other, planets with rings of crystal, and cities built in the hearts of asteroids. "Why did you leave?" someone asked. The mood changed. The Starborn's usual blue color darkened with emotion. Through the translator, they explained how one of their 3 suns had begun to die, its death throes threatening their entire system. They had built their fleet to save as many as they could, but during their desperate escape, the quantum drives had failed. "We lost contact with home," Blue transmitted softly. "We don't know if the others escaped in time." The mess hall fell silent. Then Maria, one of the Hope's cooks, did something unprecedented. She walked over to Blue, and despite the vast differences between their species, gave him what humans do best: a hug. The Starborn didn't quite understand the gesture, but they understood its meaning. Comfort, support, understanding. Captain Wilson received an urgent message from Earth Command that evening. They had been monitoring the situation and had made a decision. He called a meeting with the Starborn leaders. "Earth extends an offer," Wilson announced. "Until you can contact your people or find a new home, you are welcome in our solar system. We have identified several asteroid clusters suitable for temporary settlement." The Starborn leaders were stunned. "You would share your system with us." "We have the space," Wilson said simply, "and we could learn much from each other." The offer sparked intense discussions among the Starborn. They had never imagined primitive humans would be so generous. Their own history taught them that developing species were usually fearful and aggressive toward advanced civilizations. Later that day, in the engine room of a Starborn ship, Lisa worked with Blue on the hybrid drive installations. She noticed him staring at the human workers. "What are you thinking?" she asked. "We were wrong about so many things," Blue transmitted. "We thought advancement meant moving away from simple things, always seeking the more complex solution. But you humans, you keep the simple wisdom while reaching for the stars." Lisa smiled. "Simple doesn't mean primitive. It means understanding the basics so well that you can build on them. Like building a house, you need a strong foundation before you can add the fancy roof." The Starborn began sharing more of their knowledge, not just about technology, but about the galaxy itself. They told of other civilizations they had encountered, of wonders and dangers in the vast darkness between stars. The humans, in turn, shared their music, their art, their stories. The Starborn were particularly fascinated by human games, especially chess, which reminded them of their own strategic puzzles. In the Hope's recreation room, an unlikely sight became common. Humans and Starborn gathered around chessboards, their different approaches to the game creating fascinating matches. Your species, a Starborn elder transmitted to Wilson, has something rare. You have not lost your heart in your reach for the stars. You remember to feel, to care, to help others even when there is no benefit to yourselves. Wilson thought about this. Maybe that's our gift to the galaxy. We remember that no matter how far we advance, we're still people. Whether we have one heart or three, blue skin or pink, we all need help sometimes. As the day ended, humans and Starborn watched Earth's distant sun set through the Hope's viewing windows. Two species, so different yet finding common ground in their shared experience of the universe. The rescue mission had become something more, a bridge between civilizations, a reminder that true advancement comes not just from technology, but from understanding, compassion, and the wisdom to know that sometimes the simplest solutions are the best ones. 1 month after the first distress signal, the combined fleet of human and Starborn ships gathered near Jupiter's orbit. It was time for the final test of their grand cooperation, the first long-range jump using the new hybrid drives. The massive Starborn mothership floated at the center, its once dark hull now glowing with the combined light of quantum energy and fusion power. Around it, smaller ships formed a protective circle, their new hybrid drives humming with potential. All ships report ready, Captain Wilson announced from the Hope's bridge. The past month had changed everyone. Humans and Starborn moved around the ship together now, working as one crew. Beginning final system check, Lisa called out. She sat at a new console built to monitor both human and alien technology. Next to her, Blue watched the quantum readings with his 4 eyes. "Remember when you thought we were too primitive to help?" Lisa asked him with a smile. Blue's translator blinked. "Remember when we thought being advanced meant never using simple solutions?" He responded. Their shared laughter filled the bridge. The test would be challenging. A jump to Saturn's orbit. Not as far as the Starborn could once travel, but far enough to prove their hybrid technology worked. If successful, the fleet could begin exploring for a permanent home. "All ships prepare for jump," Wilson ordered. "Safety protocols active." The countdown began. Human crews checked their fusion containment fields while Starborn engineers monitored quantum stability. The new hybrid drives combined both technologies in ways neither species had imagined possible before. Jump in 10, 9, 8. Lisa watched her readings carefully. The quantum field held steady within its fusion framework, just like water flowing between carefully built banks. 7, 6, 5. Blue transmitted calm instructions to the Starborn fleet, guiding them through this new way of traveling through space. 4, 3, 2. Wilson gripped his chair. This was the moment of truth. 1. Jump. Space bent around them. The stars blurred. For a brief moment, everyone felt the strange sensation of being everywhere and nowhere at once. Then, with a flash of light, the fleet emerged. Saturn's rings filled their view screens, beautiful and perfect. "Position check," Wilson called out. "Exactly on target," navigation reported. "All ships present and accounted for." The cheer that erupted came from both human and Starborn throats. The hybrid drives had worked perfectly. It wasn't as fast as pure quantum travel, but it was stable, reliable, and most importantly, it worked. Message from Earth Command. Communications announced. "They're receiving our signal. The test is confirmed successful." But the real celebration wasn't just about the technology. In the Hope's main hall, humans and Starborn gathered together. They had done more than fix a stranded fleet. They had built a bridge between civilizations. Earth's council had approved permanent settlement rights for the Starborn in the asteroid belt. Already, plans were being drawn up for joint cities where both species could live and work together. We came as refugees, the Starborn Elder transmitted to the gathered crowd, hoping only for rescue. Instead, we found something more valuable than any quantum technology. We found friends who taught us that true advancement comes not from abandoning the simple things, but from building upon them wisely. Captain Wilson stepped forward, and we learned that sometimes the most primitive species in the room might just have something valuable to teach. Together, we're stronger than either of us alone. As if to prove his point, a group of human children who had been living on the hope came forward. They had made a gift. A chess set with pieces carved from ice and metal salvaged during the solar flare crisis. The Starborn were deeply moved by this simple but meaningful present. The next day, as the fleet prepared for its journey to the asteroid belt, Lisa found Blue in the engine room, studying the hybrid drive designs. "What are you thinking about?" she asked. "About rivers," he transmitted. "About how the simplest patterns in nature can teach us the greatest lessons. Your species understands this. Perhaps that is why you will go far in the universe." The final entry in Captain Wilson's log read, "Today marks not just the success of a rescue mission, but the beginning of something greater. Humanity has taken its first real steps into the galactic community. We go forward not as conquerors or followers, but as equals, bringing our unique gift of finding simple solutions to complex problems, and never forgetting that sometimes the best technology is the wisdom to know when not to use it." The stars beckoned, and now two species would explore them together, each making the other stronger.